All right, everybody. This is Product Line Partners. After a busy start to the summer, talking about product management, talking about how to build amazing companies, high growth companies, talking about product management, and of course, always talking about actual intelligence as we try to figure out how to navigate these things for ourselves, but also help other people navigate uh, this AI transition for teams, for products, etc. So one of the reasons we're having this recording right now is because Ted, one of our partners, is very angry at the state of AI hype right now. And so I will let you all experience his anger. Okay, so Ted, there you
That's
go.
right. That's right. Uncensored, man. Uncensored. So yeah, this started, like a couple weeks ago because it's a little bit old news. The news came out with Johnny Ive joining through, mega acquihire OpenAI, and Altman, waxing poetically about how this is going to be a game changer. And that by itself is fine. I mean, companies are going to do what they do. The hype is going to be the hype. Kind of what got me fired up is all of the sycophantic comments that came afterwards, right? Where like this is a master stroke, this is going to be amazing, like prepare for, artificially intelligent robots will be arriving this fall now that Johnny Ive is on board, kind of crap. Like the unbelievable, stuff that just comes with everything that he brings to the table. And so I was, talking to Oji and Ezinne, saying, okay, we should talk about this because what's real about this, right? What is the play here, right? Because I don't think it's I'm going to build the next iPhone, I'm going to build the next iCar, I'm going to build the next whatever. John, that's not why Johnny Ive is coming on board or anything like that. But certainly someone thinks there's a multi-billion or trillion-dollar payoff here that justifies the high price tag of bringing him on board. So that's what I want to talk about, and cut away kind of the anger causing sycophancy and try to talk about like maybe some of what's behind it.
Is it okay to see you like in my mind's eye? You're like that anger character in that Disney show. That's what I
Inside
see.
out.
Inside Out.
Uh,
Like I see you as the Asian avatar of that anger character.
that's
That's
the guy
what's
with the flames on his head, right? So
That's right.
next
That's
time, next
right.
time.
That's right. And that's why you have a buzz cut because the flames never let your hair
That's
grow
right. I
back.
already burned
Girl,
off all
oh
my hair.
gosh. Yeah.
Isn't it? Do you
So
have a? I have like a take on this actually, where I am
Okay.
not as angry. But
Yeah.
what do
Go
you
no,
think?
go why don't you go for it? I have thoughts, just yeah. Go for it. Let me let you go first.
So I don't. I'm not. I'll try not to be too wonky. But look, like one of the things that I told Ted and I want to tell our audience is that I actually think this is the right thing for OpenAI to do, right? Because this is about ambition. Every like 15, 20 years, there's a big change in the tech industry, right? IBM took over, no, sorry, Microsoft disrupted IBM and people like Sun Microsystems because of smaller operating systems and PC technology, which they evangelized, right? And can you imagine that Microsoft, Bill Gates must have felt like the small Sam Altman at the time, right? And he was like, "You guys are making billions of dollars. I'm going to eat your lunch, and you can't see it because you think this is a tiny thing." And that remade the industry, and everyone essentially who we know today was built on the PC industry. Adobe, everybody, but everybody who was built in that big iron thing is dead. Sun Microsystem, Cray, IBM, HP is just a good survivor, but actually it's like I mean, compact,
not
all those things
really.
sold, done. Right? No, I'm just
Yeah.
it's like just survivor, meaning that they're not what they were, but they're still a billion dollar company, right? So they've adapted, but they're not who they used to be. If that makes any sense. Even Cisco is facing like is a PC generation company, but it's facing a lot of headwinds and so on and so forth. So I think that it's just about ambition. I think that Sam Altman sees a future, and not just him, just to be clear, like his cohorts. They see a future where there's a new kind of operating system built on AI natively, not Windows, and not OS X, because those are Linux kernels and Windows kernels, and in fact, even Windows is Unix kernel derived, right? POSIX and all this stuff still underneath. they see a future where the iPhone is an anachronism, right? We all feel that the iPhone, there's no way that's our future, right? It's too dumb. Like talking to Claude or ChatGPT and talking to your iPhone, it feels like the thing is a dinosaur. One is hardware, sure, but it's just a very different experience. And so very soon, the hardware that matches that intelligence will show up. The question is, who does it? Apple is slow moving right now in its own particular way. I think they want to. Apple sort of is really good at building accessible stuff and not necessarily being the fastest to market, just being the right one to market. So they're still a threat.
Yeah.
But I think Sam Altman feels like that is going to be their undoing. They're going to try and figure out, okay, what's the mass market version of this? And they will miss it. And he will be right there to pick up the pieces. This guy has been going around the world trying to raise $8 trillion because he believes that this is a changing of the guard fundamentally in technology that will happen over the next 10, 20 years. And he wants to position his company to be the creator of the next operating system, the creator of the next iPhone, the creator of everything that we care about. All the big like workflows of everyday workflows. Okay, I need a general purpose computer. I need email. I need like he wants to take it all over. Now, people are gonna fight him. People got trillion. I mean, Apple's got $1 trillion. That's not nothing. So he's got his work cut out for him. But by bringing Johnny Ive, I mean, I don't know what Johnny will produce. The last thing he did was electric bike for Rivian,
Right.
which doesn't seem very impressive. And the last thing that we know of him that was really good was one of the original iPhones and iMac line, which is 10 years ago. So who knows? Well,
So
his brand is effective. So anyway, sorry, I've gone on for
so
too long, isn't it? What do you think
no,
about it?
I think everything you all say is great, and I actually think it's really interesting. The thing that I'm struggling with is trying to figure out for Apple. I know we all talk about Apple's design, etc., but the reality is that it's the ecosystem thinking that I think
Hmm.
really did keep
Absolutely.
Apple like a strategic and long-standing. Was that Johnny Ive? That's the fundamental question, because there's a lot of excitement on the hardware, but hardware on its own, the sexiest hardware will do nothing. It is how seamless can it be? And I know Ives has a philosophy of like simple, intuitive, etc. So I don't know much about Sam Altman's strategic ecosystem, like the strategery
Top
thinking.
notch,
Okay,
top
so
notch.
I think
The
that.
guy is truly. So two comments on your comment, maybe, and then
Hmm.
you can continue.
Hmm.
One is, I was absolutely part of the ecosystem thinking. He was
Okay.
like
Okay.
everything from the tiny stuff like the MagSafe, and then making MagSafe a standard across. Which I don't know. Some of those
Sure.
cables make
Okay.
them like $500 million,
$1 billion. Okay.
right?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
So like he was part of it. I'm not saying he's the architect because I think Jobs was the actual architect of this, which is the seamlessness ethos.
Yeah.
But people like him and the current CEO bought into it and
Okay.
took it to the next level of thinking.
Okay.
He's absolutely part of it. Like he
Okay.
was one of his biggest fights within Apple was actually the fact that the PC guys who came before him, because he came
Hmm.
more on the mobile side, he eventually took over, right? And they would do things that he thought were design inconsistent with the mobile stuff, and he would
Okay.
come down hard on them. And some of them left. Some of them got booted because they didn't fit into. They were like, "Oh, we're here before you," and they
Hmm.
eventually all left because
Okay.
his design ethos was stamped on the company across all
Okay.
the lines to make it consistent.
Okay. So like
Yeah. Well, and the
I
physical
spent
presence,
I
right?
I spent a lot of, sorry, digital what? Presence?
No, the physical presence, right? I think
Okay,
I think
physical
it's
presence.
the design. And here I mean the stores, right? I mean it's very clear like the design ethos that Ive has, and I know he wasn't designer of the stores, and he was not like the architect of the commercial plan to even launch those. But if you go and you look at them, right, it fits in the overall brand completely, right? The whole ethos, the whole like you're immersed in that world. It all is this really simple, elegant world that everything works, right?
But those came after. So remember that I spent a lot of time in telco, right? And I was there when Android, the Danger team, was trying to figure out if we're doing Android, the Sidekick team, for those who don't remember. And when Facebook wanted a phone, Twitter wanted a phone, everybody wanted a phone. And I watched that battle. And fundamentally, if there's going to be a replacement, it's not about the physical design, it's not about the stores. It actually is about the seamlessness in one's life, right? Watching the behaviors, the workflows of human beings and figuring out how to be in that. Like, remember, many apps in your phone, in your pocket. That was the whole, that's really the strategy around iPhone. So if in fact, and I believe this because we have a lot of things to look back to, Altman will take a look at what happened in the past and use that thinking. And then we have Ives to do the design piece. Then it fundamentally comes down to reimagining how we live in the future and being able to design an OS that can help in that space. It's not the physical design, it's not how pretty it is, it's not how and then to your point, are we going to change the human interaction with AI? I think that's a big question. Like, is it going to be mostly
What does that mean?
speech?
Human
So,
interaction. Oh, I mean like the way we interact with
user
these technologies.
with technology. So
Yeah.
right now it's type and click, type and click. With the Ray-Ban, and you see the proliferation of being able to see who you're speaking with. Lots of lot more people are recording stuff. So it's just watching and paying attention to the pain and the experience people are having and being able to insert oneself in it. I think that's going to be a fundamental piece. Second, and funny enough, I say this because we have teenagers, there is a push against AI. And whoever cracks this has to figure out what is the fundamental issue that this generation way below us is pushing against and really mitigate that. So I mean, I don't have all my thoughts together, but I will say this. This is really interesting, but I don't think it's interesting for the reasons people are excited about it, which is usually hardware.
Well,
Blah, blah, blah.
this is why we have this podcast, because that's the
Exactly.
truth. We're trying to dig behind what people see. And let me just maybe isn't it and I Ted has actually like an interesting thought around like app stores and so on and their impact. But I will say that everything you said is so fascinating to me because the industrial design of Johnny Ives was not the key. The ecosystem was key, right?
Yeah.
The industrial design was like the bait, right?
It made
It
it
pulled you,
sexy.
Right.
It made it
yes,
so. It
but
made
the
it
ecosystem,
sexy. Yes.
yeah,
Sorry,
but the
it made it
ecosystem was
sexy
the real
thing.
competitive advantage.
Useful. So that is the thing. The ecosystem made it so useful and
Yeah,
pertinent to your daily life. And then the stores made it homely, like made it accessible. So they're just little different things we need to think about. Right now, usefulness. How do we insert this and make it extremely useful in our day to day? That is the core thing that
yes.
they're going to be working
Industrial design
against.
was never enough. People
Mhm.
don't appreciate that. You also said
Seamless
something else before we move to Ted. You also said that
the
um,
interaction design.
interaction,
Design.
but also privacy, right?
Mhm.
The reason that people fear AI is twofold. One is they feel it's invasive. They feel it's supplanting, and we've all seen, Terminator. So there's a trust issue. And actually, I'm grappling with this because Balance is about using AI. We're betting on AI, the great replacement. My team, like I did a walkthrough of user experience today. The thing we focus on is trust. How can we get you to trust us? How can we put trust markers that say that we will be good stewards of this thing? We
Responsible
will
with the
not share anything. We will not train on it. In fact, I guess I can say this because it's not proprietary or anything. One of the big things that we know we need to crack in Fabric is what I call zero knowledge AI processing. Like we are seeking a way where we can bring your data into the system encrypted process it encrypted without a key. So we never see it. We can never respond to, like, we want to be the signal of AI data processing because we know that that's what it takes to gain trust. And actually, today, there is no way to do it. Like, you can do encryption at rest, encryption in storage, but if you want to reason over information, we don't know how to do it completely encrypted,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
And so it can be encrypted, but we have to, you have to store a key. We actually don't want the key. We want you to hold the key. We don't want to hold the key so that you can trust us. But the counterpoint to that is that if you deliver functionality that people find truly useful, they don't care as much about privacy because they just care about the usefulness.
There's an equation. And we
Yeah,
need to figure
there's
out
an
there's an
equation there.
equation for
Usefulness. You can get
useless.
millions of people to give you money. If it's really useful, you might not get a billion. That requires a lot of trust. Where you can get millions because they need it today. They're like, ah. There are people who don't. There are financial companies who don't want to touch AI, who are using AI because they can't not. It makes
They
them
can't know.
uncompetitive. And so that's the
Yeah, yeah.
trade-off. Anyway, Ted,
So,
sorry.
so let's go back a little bit and go back to this kind of concept of the kind of, I don't know, all-encompassing or ubiquitous design as kind of the metaphor for what might happen with AI, because I think that's a good thought, that it'd be good to probe a little bit deeper into, right? Because the core innovation of an Apple, or even other operating systems before that, was kind of this all-encompassing. If you think about Windows, right? Prior to Windows and Windows, like, I'm not talking about Windows specifically, the Microsoft product. I mean, the concept of that kind of interface, the next designed interface, right? That looks of Windows, right? Opening thing. That took over your desktop. It took over.
Next is a deep reference. Not everyone will know that, but keep going.
Yeah, well, come on. There's a lot of jobs heads, in the world, right? Anyway, it took over your computer, right? Because prior to that, it was the command line, right? And it was, hey, you got all this, but then I use the command line to do the actual work. Those interfaces took over your entire computer, right? And then you run everything under it. And the idea being, this was your entire experience. So even that, maybe this is the common thread, maybe, Aji, was between the Google and the Microsoft, is each of these things become ubiquitous, all-encompassing things that everyone has to put on top their stuff on top. So if you think about AI, right, and I completely believe, or I completely have witnessed, what Ezinne was talking about in terms of this kind of Gen Z backlash. Not backlash is not the right word, but let's call it like this craving of authenticity, right, that exists in a world where anything can be fake and anything can be created, right? So I believe OpenAI is obviously doing the other thing. They're trying to make it invisible, right? This goes to the trust that you're just talking about right now. Make it invisible. Make it everywhere. And now I own and control all of it, and you don't even know that it's all running on my platform, my substrate, my AI, right? It's everywhere. I think that perhaps it may be like the high level, potentiality here.
Yeah, I think there actually is something to watch. I don't know the answer to this, okay? Making it ubiquitous, making it invisible, is actually going to be really important. However, there's also a push to be able to track where AI has been, what it is, and where the data it's been trained on is. So there's this dichotomy that we have to play with. And I fully understand why this generation is a little suspicious, because even we that advise a lot of the young folk know that AI is really disrupting. It's not even about the power consumption. It's not even about can you trust information. It's that it's disrupting so much of what has been in terms of career, jobs, etc., that it actually is disorienting to folks, right? So there's a trust that's beyond data source. It's beyond all the things we've talked about, right? Power consumption, and the destruction and implication on the earth. It's just, hey, we don't know what this means for us, right? We don't know what this means career-wise. We don't know how many, what jobs look like. Nobody can advise us anymore because there are so many unknowns. So there's a general distrust. Then you layer on this idea that, okay, it has to be pervasive everywhere. To your point, if it's going to be an operating system, it just has to be there. And I'm not even a fan of operating system alone, because again, it wasn't the operating system that helped Apple. It was the adoption by all these application and developers of that operating system and of that ecosystem. That is actually what made Apple successful. Because trust me, Symbian, Nokia, they had some of the most powerful operating systems, but it was closed. Nobody adopted it, et cetera, et cetera. So there are so many things that have to come to bear in building the operating system and getting people to adopt it. And I think ubiquity, seamlessness, all of that is important. But at the same time, OpenAI has the challenge of trying to convince the future that it is that they can talk about what's that thing? Something of data, knowing where the data came from,
Traceability,
the
provenance.
traceability, the provenance of data, the provenance of the training, the provenance of the LLM, all of that stuff. So there's this dichotomy that has to happen. I don't know how you expose that while also keeping it kind of under G so that it's everywhere. So that's the thing that I'm personally interested in watching how OpenAI and all the other companies actually manage
Can I
to
connect the
solve for this.
threads? Actually,
Yeah,
can I connect the threads a bit? I think that
please.
something that Ted said struck me, which is it's actually like from people who watch tech history, what we really need is a people of high character to be leaders. And I feel like people don't necessarily feel like Sam Altman is the person to do this. Really, after the last episode they had with the nonprofit Ilya Sutskever, and basically the original management team is disbanded except him. That episode was really jarring and it spoke to trust. Like, this is not a Bill Gates or even a Steve Jobs. Like, that's not the trust people put in them. Because, imagine if people didn't trust, everyone knows that Steve Jobs is an asshole, but they trusted him. They thought he had good motivation, right, in doing what he did. And people still revere Bill Gates today, even though Microsoft went through like a big shadow and let everyone sort of beat his ass for like 10 years under Bauman. Um, and I feel like what Ted said is that by necessity, an AI operating system or any of these things, they're gonna wanna, and Ezinne, you mentioned this, they're gonna wanna keep this pervasive but invisible. And this is also follows the freaking sci-fi stuff, like a super powerful entity or device or something that you can't see.
Right.
Like, you can't see. It's just there's something nefarious seeming
Can be.
and threatening about that. And it
Yeah.
feels like they're following the script, right? Instead of like showing sunlight, because I feel like sunlight is trust. It's saying, okay, here's how we label. Here is how where we get our staff from in Kenya. Here is we don't ever hear that stuff. We know people are crawling sites and crawling books, and you see TikToks of authors feeling ripped off. Like, we have a personal friend who found their entire book in an AI brain dump.
Right.
Now authors are feeling scared because people are just sucking up all their IP, not to talk of New York Times. So there's something backroom
Esque.
Yeah.
and under G about the way this is progressing, and it feels like it could be different.
I would
The
I would
ambition, yeah,
typically I would typically say open source it, but knowing the
no,
drama I went through recently,
no, it's not just, it's not,
you
it's not
know,
just the, it's
or
not just the
it's
government
governance.
engine
Open
stuff.
Not a
source the
gold machine, man.
governance.
Open source
WordPress.
is the solution here.
Can we diverge into open source it, because I want to bust bubbles here.
No,
Okay.
hold on. I want to say I'm not saying open source the solution or the operating system, etc. It's to your point, sunshine, sunlight, right?
Sunshine,
How do we
sure.
make governance? How do we open up things a little more? Because I don't know who anybody trusts for this type of power. And I don't know
Yeah.
that you can trust one person. I think that's the learning.
Nobody trusts
That's the
nobody.
learning
Yeah.
for me from the WordPress situation. Is that I don't think it can be one person's hand.
Can you
Period.
explain the
You just
WordPress
cannot.
situation? Because not
Okay.
everybody's following.
So
What is that?
so I mean I was recently chief product officer at WP Engine, and during that time, I don't know if people know this, but WordPress is about 43% of the internet. Almost all the sites in the world are built on WordPress, which is an open source solution. However, and then many companies have been built on WordPress. And there was an assumption for many that it was truly open source with the right governance structure, et cetera, et cetera. But over time, it became apparent that it wasn't as open source as people thought, and only one person was running the foundation that actually provided governance. And that person actually ended up putting lots of companies, particularly target ours, then just putting them in a world of hurt. So it's this
At
idea that
risk.
if the at risk as a whole, saying I can claw this back. So imagine a world in which we have an AI operating system, everything is built on top of it, and somebody decides to get in their crazy head that they want to take power, right? That's really possible if we don't create some type of openness, some type of sunlight, some type of governance that isn't in one person's hand, not one company's hand. Because if we really, really want this to work, it has to be something where many companies, many solutions can build on top of. If not, we're going to
Yeah,
have this
and this is what happened
bifurcation.
with the OpenAI board fight, right? That's exactly what happened. They set up a board to govern the company, and Sam was essentially a brilliant, fast-moving mastermind of how to drive AI forward, at least in his vision. And he wrested power from the board. The board tried to fire him, and they couldn't even do that.
Right.
And so, I mean, I'm not like lionizing the board. Some of them maybe shouldn't have been there. Well, that's exactly what happened. It was like
Yeah.
abstract governance, and that abstraction failed.
Failed.
That's just what happened.
Exactly.
Well, the thing about OpenAI, which is actually quite interesting, because as part of that saga, right, they've now become this for-profit, and to do this, they've basically completely 180 their entire virtue, the why they existed, because they existed. If you look back to the nonprofit, and a nonprofit must have a very specific mission, right? That is the reason it exists and should be given
You
nonprofit
know, they're still
status.
a nonprofit. They have not changed
I
that.
know it hasn't been finished yet. It hasn't finished yet, but in order to do it,
They tried to, but yeah.
they're basically literally inverting the entire purpose of being. The entire purpose of being was to control and not let AI get out of control. Right? That was the goal was ethical creation of AI. That's why they existed. And now is the flip side of let's have badass AI and then let's see if we can make it better and nicer for humanity. So they flipped the whole thing around, right? And
Well,
here we
I
go.
don't know that I don't know that I agree. I think part of control is not, to me, like I know we're talking about negative stuff, but to me, part of control is the only way to control in technology is actually to be the lead. Okay?
Or,
If you don't, you can't actually control anything.
Control. Yeah.
If you are not the purveyor of the gun, you can't put a silencer on it. You can't put the safety on it in
okay.
technology specifically. So I don't
I don't
necessarily
agree that. Yeah.
disagree. I don't necessarily disagree that they shouldn't do these things. The question is,
Can we
will they
trust?
have the discipline when trillions are on the line
Yes.
to
Well, that's
protect
right.
us?
Yes.
And this is where the legal structure previously literally forbade them from doing it. Now, you can argue whether that was BS anyway, just like the firing Altman was BS, because the board exercised its legal authority, but then because of the way in which the marketplace reacted, right, they literally had no authority. The board is powerless in the marketplace, right, literally
De
facing
facto
billions of
power
dollars.
versus de jure
Right.
power. Like this is what we're
Right,
supposed to do, but the de facto
raw
power
power,
lied.
right?
Yeah.
Because that company exists within a framework called the United States, and in the United States, having a lot of money and having a lot of lawyers gets you a lot of power, right? So the actual authorities that board have were nothing compared to the market, right? Nothing, right? So and they lost, and so there is that question, right? So even though the legal structure and as it stands today allows them literally to put a stop to stuff that's out of control, right? Does that make a difference, right? Whether the structure is different. Now, we've kind of veered a little bit away from our topic, but I think the key part that ties us back is this ubiquitousness thing, right? This concept of why is Johnny Ive there? And to be clear, like we can be super cynical. Maybe there's no reason at all, and Sam just needed a good headline that week, okay? And he had a few extra billion to spend. Like we really, like who knows, right? Figure it
No,
out
he's
later.
raising $8 trillion. He can spend 2 billion on Johnny Ive to get $8 trillion.
It's all good. Exactly. Fake it till you make it, kind of, right? A little bit. So, so maybe there is no master plan. No, I think there is a master plan, right? But I think, or at least there's fragments of a plan as we've been talking about, right? And so again, we go back to this ubiquitousness and this concept of, your point is well taken, right, Audrey, which is that like, if it doesn't exist, if the tech doesn't exist, and if I'm not the controller or the inventor of that tech, then it can't obviously meet the goals, right? If this is like the nuclear weapons research now, right? Or sorry, nuclear weapons creation now, not research, right? If it can happen with a bunch of dudes, in a basement somewhere in some hostile terrorist state, then we can't control crap. Okay, treaties are meaningless compared to that, right? If it's that able to be used now, but in order to even regulate it, it first had to be invented. So that's fair, right? But again, I think the whole goal of what a Johnny Ive could do and the whole power structure of what OpenAI wants to do is the opposite. It is the opposite of sunshine, as we talked about here. It is the opposite of control, right? Or whether or anything about this in terms of controlling what the AI do. It's an arms race. We want to, as you just said, create it first, maybe for laudable reasons, but probably not. Maybe just for power and money. That's all. Or
Can I add a little thing here? I actually think they should be forward technologists. I like that. But there's no evidence that they are putting as much weight into the sunlight and the governance of this as they are into the forward pushing of the technology and making money of it. I think that the world would feel better if they had hundreds of people working on safety, working on de-escalating the ongoing war by sharing openly, right? It doesn't mean that they can't make profit, but it does mean that right now they are also stoking the adverse downward spiral that is going to get us all into trouble, right? Let me give you an example. As much as we currently loathe Elon Musk, when he started Tesla and actually even SpaceX, one of his, and this is no longer the case, but one of his ethos was sharing. Like he open sourced key technologies to GM and Chinese,
yeah, yeah,
both in space and reusability and in cars. His car charger is now the North American standard. And I don't think he's getting any royalties for it. I don't believe so. I may be wrong. But that helped in that crucial phase where EVs were completely questionable, de-escalate and help people invest. I don't see OpenAI doing the same thing. Um, Now ultimately we know that Musk just wants control. So for him, that was just a way to do more control. So the character still matters. But I do think that they can make money and be good citizens. And we just don't see that emphasis.
So we've covered a lot, right? But if we go back to the heart of it, I think that there's a lot of noise on joining OpenAI, and it's really around whether it's the IO hardware, et cetera, and all the stuff. And I think that that's missing the point. I get it from your experience, at least Oji, you're saying that Sam Altman is that thinker, etc. So they will be thinking of beyond the hardware, because I think that is
Hmm.
what is necessary. If
Super
it
convinced.
is
Yeah.
it is
I don't think they've missed that
necessary.
trick. I don't think
Okay,
they've
but
missed that trick.
but
Yeah.
there are
But
announcements.
you're
Like
right.
if
You're
I
right
were
though. If
them,
that's
I
the
would be
only
making
thing,
different
yeah,
announcements, not the type of announcements they're making. They're so focused on hardware, etc. It's not the type. Like if I were the PR firm, then there's a major mistake, because I
that's a
would
good point.
begin to I would begin to foreshadow what it is that I want to do, because they have the money to go do it, and then they would attract the people that can do it, which is really truly building an ecosystem. That
yeah,
said, have a fear around government. Okay, so I guess before I can talk about my fear, the thing is, in order to win, there has to be ubiquity. Period. There has to be ubiquity across. Everybody wants to use it. That's the ecosystem. Can the world really support two ecosystems, three ecosystems? Right. This is where Google, Facebook, all of them begin to compete, and who knows what's going to happen. And then if we have these separated things, will there be the sunlight we talked about, right? Exposing what is really going on with the governance, and also showing provenance? What's going to happen? But even worse is, I really think that what has caused the blockchain technology to be stifled is some of what we're seeing now again. I think the internet was able to be really disruptive because it was truly owned by the government
Open.
forever. For a long time, it was truly open. Okay. When you have people competing in the same technology space, you can't get that pure following, everybody on it. So that's the other piece of crap. Are we going to get to a place where we can work together to truly take advantage of everything that is possible here? So those are my musings. I just think we're having the wrong conversation. Not this group, but I'm saying outside on what is possible with an AI OS and an AI ecosystem. And if we truly are looking for an AI ecosystem, can it survive? Can it really thrive with disparate, closed systems? Because that's what they will be. They will be their independent systems. Facebook will have it. And then we go back to the whole Bitcoin versus Ethereum versus, and none of them actually taking hold to truly be the solution like the internet was. So that's where my head is.
That's super interesting, right? Because the PR and all this stuff that's coming out from Altman and a lot of people it's always been about more badass models, getting to the point of AGI, getting to the point of consciousness, right? That's like, let's push, like the state of the tech. How badass is this tech, right? And then, but really the play is the ubiquitousness, right? The play is the Jetsons universe type stuff where it's just everywhere and everything's automated and everything's done for you, right? And it's that like because that is the domination, if you will. So it is interesting, and maybe it is because they've gone so far down that line. Even with trillions of dollars, it's difficult to pivot what the company is known for, right? Which is actually brings stuff to another point, and I know we've talked about so many different points, but this is really the tech isn't the like just a little expansion, right? Which is how many tokens it can handle, how fast it can do it, how deep the model thinks, blah 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 blah. Okay, especially because that paper that just came out that basically is like, hey, all these reasoning models, that's all a bunch of crap, folks. That's basically presenting to humans what we want to see. It doesn't actually reason. Okay, hot tip there. But the same thing, which is to say, this is the tech. The tech is not the point here, right? And so we've got all this stuff going on, and the question is, do these companies understand that? And I would argue the answer is yes for the late arrivers. Okay, so I like to laugh at Gemini because of how bad it is. But like, remember Google Bard? It was a joke, right? And like some of these stuff, it's just a joke. It's just a joke, right? Gemini is way better than that. It's still not that great, by the way. I don't know if you're gonna get used on it. My point being, Google's not trying to have the most badass model. They're trying to have the most integrated model right now. All of their stuff, right? One place, bang, it can be, the ringmaster to coordinate your Gmail and your calendar and your da 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 and all the other things that Google has its tentacles in, right? So they're doing it because they're late to the party and didn't innovate the best, most badass thing.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. I feel like there's so much meat in what we've talked about. You talked about your fears, talked about how you need a fair arbiter, right, for people to really innovate in something. And I think you're getting at something, everyone is using their asset. OpenAI's asset is the model, first of all, and then they're late to everything else, the developer ecosystem, an app ecosystem, and so on. They only got ChatGPT. Google is late to the model perfection, but they have the app ecosystem and they have search, which is a lot of knowledge. And so they're deploying their assets to win. Microsoft is basically doing the same thing, deploying Office and Windows to win. Apple is kind of laggard on that because they're just like, we don't know what will win. We don't want to be early movers here because everyone could be pissing away billions of dollars. So everyone is doing
Facebook.
what they
What about
always do.
Facebook? What? Yeah.
Facebook is loading this into their 3 billion, their 3 billion miles or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's in WhatsApp, it's in Messenger. They just released an app actually, like ChatGPT on mobile, that I find personally threatening because we're building Fabric, which they call it your personal AI. So they're going to look at your chats and try to do magical stuff. I think what they miss is that most people don't commit their lives to Facebook, actually. Maybe some people do, but a lot of people don't.
But certainly not anymore.
So, especially not the young ones, right? So anyway, they have that too. So they are basically, because Facebook is in a lot of trouble because I actually saw a headline about how they already pissed away billions of dollars because they don't have a monetization agent except ads.
Yeah.
So
But
they
I
have
don't
a
want you to
very
lose your point on people using your assets because I just asked
yeah,
about
no.
Facebook as
So
an
Facebook is using
assessment.
its
Yeah.
asset, which is distribute this to consumers Oh, by the way, you've seen that Facebook is making AI friends on Facebook and
Yeah, I
Instagram.
saw that.
Did you know this? So they are seeding the ecosystem with bots that you can talk to and you can be friends with. So you're no longer trying to be, friend cousin Marge. You're friending an AI. And everyone is kind of horrified. They're like, why do you guys think this is a good thing? They're still doing it. Because they know actually these people Facebook is the most sorry, I don't mean to go hyperbolic. It's the most capable company in the valley. They have so much data on not the world, which is what Google has, but on human behavior. And if they're doing AI friends, they know something. There are people who spend hours talking to AIs today for counseling or just for flirting or whatever. They know this. They've studied Second Life and all these immersive games and what people actually do, which is relationship. And so I think they are steering. So that's their asset. That's their
Okay,
knowledge.
I was gonna say. So you say people are using their assets. I think that's where Ted was leaning
Yes.
to. So,
Yeah, people are
um,
using their assets to do predictable asset maximization things. Um, yeah,
I obviously this isn't gonna happen, but can
asset
we just get
maximization
along?
is a new word, by the way.
Asset
I guess.
maximization is, can we all get along? Can we figure out who's good at what, take the best of what, and actually build something?
But what
Because
what
the
what
World
gives us
Wide Web,
evidence? Web 2.0 is about people rejecting the open internet, right? And making trillions on top of it. Like there's no
yes,
evidence to
Google
say
Wall
anybody
but
will
Street.
do this.
not against. But the point was, when 3.0 came, it wasn't to replace 2.0. It was supposed to live alongside. Does that make sense? So they wanted a private and a public,
No, what I'm
right?
saying is that the leadership of the valley, the leadership of the venture capital, do not
Mm-hmm.
believe in openness fundamentally.
Of
They want
course not.
control.
But then there will be lots of waste, and there will be a lot of, like, it's unfortunate. There will just be a lot of waste. I don't know who's going to win, because everybody is now savvy. Everybody's going to protect everybody. So it's I think we will lose. We will spend a lot. There will be a lot of waste in what is possible
100%.
in
There,
this
there is going to be
ecosystem
a lot of
operating
waste.
system.
We can
So
take
it's
it to Vegas.
unfortunate.
There will be a lot of waste. It is unfortunate. So I think Ted should go. We should build like the trusted version of this AI thing. Like we need more trust. Trust as a product.
Trust is a product. We've heard that before. But interestingly enough, it has not resulted in any gigantic, Microsoft-sized companies, right? Interesting.
Yeah. So your
Yeah.
rant, your
Okay.
rant, your rant is well taken, Ted. I think that, yeah, we're just not talking about the right things with
Can I
I've
recap? Can
being
I
on
recap
board.
so that we can, because we talked about a lot of things. One
Mm-hmm.
is the Johnny Hive hype was mad, and he was focused on Johnny Hive and what he's gonna do. Like Sam Altman said, "Oh, he's built a prototype that's the greatest thing since sliced bread." Isn't his main point is hardware devices, even for Apple, were always like they were
You're
like
sexy.
a
The lost
sexy
leader. They brought you on
common, not
board.
lost. They
Yes.
made money on it,
No, they made
uh,
money. Sorry.
but a
Yeah, not
sexy
lost leader.
common into an ecosystem that was immersive
Yes.
and seamless,
Yes.
right? And we also made the point that part of the problems everyone's going to deal with is just trust. Young people, but trust and usefulness. If you do amazing things, sometimes people rely trust. So it's like it's a weird dance. But the young people are, because they don't know how this will affect their future. To them, AI is an adversary, right? Fundamentally, and everyone has to deal with that reality. And also, we start talking about trust. Who are the honest arbiters of technology anymore that we will follow, and that will do the right things by humanity? And we talk a little bit about that. So anyway, guys, this was amazing. This is probably like our most wide-ranging conversation. So we'll have to edit very carefully to make sure, or use clips to make sure that things in the right order. Well, thanks for offering your thoughts. I learned a lot. Uh, got lots of new perspectives, and we'll talk to you, everyone, later. Okay.
To chew on. Have a great week. The rest of the week, y'all.
All right. Cheers.
Bye.